Hey, welcome back. Today we'll continue reading The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin, starting with chapter 10. A quick reminder of what happened the last time we read. The pairs have begun working on figuring out the clues that they were given when at the reading of Sam Westing's will, but no one is able to make any sense of any of their clues since they were all given like a set of 5 random words, and no one's able to figure out any sort of meaning between them at all. So they're all secretly trying to get information about the other pair's clues. So no one's really trusting anyone right now. And someone stole Sadell Pulowski's notebook that contained the shorthand notes that she had taken about what the will said, because everyone also was trying to get that information out of her, because they think that what was said in the will might help them make sense of their clues. And Judge Ford is now throwing a party for everyone in the building because she is trying to figure out information about the heirs themselves, because she thinks that sort of information will help her figure out her clues. So there's a lot of alternative agendas and motives going on here, and a lot of distrust. So chapter 10, we'll pick up with Judge Ford's party. Chapter 10, The Long Party. I hope we're not too early. Grace Winslow Wexler always arrived at parties fashionably late, but not tonight. She didn't want to miss a thing, or a clue, or wait around in her apartment without a murder on the loose. Or with a murderer on the loose. I don't think you've met my husband, Dr. Wexler. Call me Jake. Hello, Jake, Judge Ford said. A firm handshake, laugh lines around his eyes. He needed a sense of humor with that social climbing life. What a lovely living room, so practically furnished, Grace commented. Our apartments are identical in layout, but mine looks so different. You must come see what I've done with it. I'm a decorator, you know. 3 bedrooms do seem rather spacious for a single woman. What does she mean, 3 bedrooms? This is a 1-bedroom apartment. Would you care for an appetizer, Mrs. Wexler? I'm curious to know exactly how you are related to the Westing family. The judge had hoped to take the quote, heiress by surprise, but Grace gained time by coughing. Goodness, that ginger is spicy. It's the Sichuan cooking style, you know. How am I related? Let's see. Uncle Sam was my father's oldest brother, or was he the youngest brother of my father's father? Excuse me, I have to greet my other guests. The judge left the prattling pretender. Father's brother or father's father's brother. If the relationship was on the paternal side, her maiden name would be Westing. The party went on and on. No one dared be the first to leave. Safety in numbers, especially with the judge there. So the guests ate and drank and jabbered, and they all watched the other guests eat and drink and jabber. No one laughed. I guess murder isn't very funny, Jake Wexler said. Neither is money, Mr. Hu replied glumly. Deciding that his wife had found the perfect partner, the podiatrist moved on to the 2 women standing in silence at the front window. Cheer up, Angie Pye. You'll see your Denton soon enough. His daughter twisted out of his embrace. Are you all right, Angela? I'm fine. She was not fine. Why do they ask about Denton all the time, as though she was nobody without him? Oh, it wasn't just that. It wasn't even the humiliation of her mother chiding her about the twin costume, in front of everybody, and sending her back to their apartment to change clothes. It was more than that. It was everything. Jake turned to Madame Hu. Hi there, partner. She doesn't speak English, Dad, Angela said flatly. And she never will, Angela, if no one talks to her. Snow, said Madame Hu. Jake followed her pointing finger. That's right, snow. Lots and lots of snow. Snow, trees, road, Lake Michigan. China, said Madame Hu. China? Sure, why not, Jake replied. China. Angela left the chatting couple. Why couldn't she have made some sort of friendly gesture? Because she might do the wrong thing and annoy her mother. Angela, the obedient daughter, did only what her mother told her to do. Hello, Angela. One of these tidbits might cheer you up. Judge Ford held the tray before her. I hear you'll be getting married soon. Some people have all the luck, Sadell Pulaski said, appearing from nowhere to lean over the tray to spear a cube of pork. Of course, not all us women have opted for marriage, right, Judge Ford? Some of us prefer the professional life, though I must say, if a handsome young doctor like Denton Deere proposed to me, I might just change my mind. Too bad he doesn't happen to be twins. Excuse me, the judge moved away. I'm not having any luck at all, Angela, Siddell whined. If only your mother hadn't made you change clothes, someone surely would have mentioned twin. It's so much harder to judge reactions when I have to bring up the subject myself. You shouldn't let your mother boss you like that. You're a grown woman, about to be married. Excuse me. Angela moved away. Yes, thank you. I would like a refill, Siddell said to nobody, and hobbled to the bar. Something non-alcoholic, please. Doctor's orders. Make it a double. Twins. Twins? What's she talking about? Theo wondered, staring at the black and white checkered costume. 2 ginger ales for the chessboard, coming right up. Hidden among her guests, the judge studied the 2 people standing off in the corner, the only pair in Sunset Towers who were not Westing heirs. George Theodorakis placed his hand on the shoulder of his invalid son. A large, bronze, hard-working hand, like Theo's. Theo resembled him in many ways. Tall, wide shoulders, slim-waisted, the same thick, straight black hair, but age had chiseled the father's face into sharper planes. His troubled eyes stared across the room at Angela. Catherine Theodorakis, a slight, careworn woman, gazed down on her younger son with tired, dark-circled eyes. From his wheelchair, Chris watched legs. Other than the funny lady with the shorthand notes, the only limpers were his brother, Theo — Turtle had kicked him again — and Mrs. Wexler, who stood on one leg rubbing her stockinged foot against her calf. A high-heeled shoe stood alone on the carpet beneath her. Judge Ford didn't limp. Besides, she couldn't be a murderer, in spite of his clues. Nobody here looks like a murderer. They're all nice people, even this fat Chinese man who grumbles all the time. George Theodorakis greeted Mr. Hu with, "How's business?" Hu spun around and stomped off from his fellow restaurant owner in a huff of anger. James Hu, inventor, that's who the judge wanted to talk to, but there was a problem at the bar. A long line had formed and it wasn't moving. There are 16 white pieces and 16 black pieces in chess, Theo was explaining to Siddell Pulowski. Do you play chess, Judge Ford? A bit, but I haven't played in years. The judge led the secretary away from the crowded bar. Theo must think the Westing game has something to do with chess. He may be right. It certainly is as complicated as a chess game. But I did study, Doug was arguing. The judge interrupted. I haven't had a chance to thank you for the delicious food, Mr. Hu. How long have you been in the restaurant business? Running up and down stairs is not studying, Hu said. Siddell Pulowski butted in. Father and son? You look more like twins. You're equal partners with that Theodorakis kid, Hu continued. Why didn't you insist on holding the meeting in our restaurant instead of that greasy coffee shop? Because some people don't like chow mein for breakfast, Siddell Pulowski replied. There you are, dear. Grace patted a stray wisp of Angela's hair into place. But you must do something about your coiffure. I'll make an appointment with you for my hairdresser once the snow is cleared. Long hair is too youthful for a woman about to be married. I can't understand what got into you, Angela, coming to this party in that old checkered dress and those awful accessories, just because your partner dresses like a freak. She's not a freak, Mother. I was just speaking to Mr. Hu about catering the wedding shower on Saturday. I arranged for little Madame Hu to serve in one of those slinky Chinese gowns. Where are you going? Angela! Angela rushed into Judge Ford's kitchen. She had to get away. She had to be alone, by herself, or she'd burst out crying. She was not alone. Crow was there. The 2 women stared at each other in surprise, then turned away. Poor baby. Crow wanted to reach out to the pretty child. She wanted to take her in her arms and say, poor, poor baby, go ahead and cry. But she couldn't. All she could say was, here. Angela took the dish towel from the cleaning woman and bunched it against her face to muffle the wrenching sobs. The guests jabbered on and on about the weather, about food, about football, about chess, about twins. Turtle was slumped on the couch, scornful of dumb grown-up parties. You'd think one of them would know something about the stock market. She missed Sandy. Sandy was the only one in this dumb building she could talk to. Remember that quotation, May God thy gold refine? Flora Baumbach asked. Let's take a poll. I'll bet 10 cents it's from the Bible. Shakespeare, Turtle argued, and make it $10. Oh my, well, all right, $10. Together they made the rounds. 4 votes for the Bible, 3 for Shakespeare, and 1 abstention. Madame Hu did not understand the question. Siddell Pulowski voted for the Bobbsey twins. And how do you know those words were in the will? She asked suspiciously. Too suspiciously. So that's what lost important business papers meant. Somebody stole the shorthand notes. Turtle smiled at the delicious nastiness of it all. I remember, that's all. If you remember so well, tell me what comes before that, Siddell challenged. I don't know. What? The secretary had an audience now. I don't mind telling you, but not if you ask like that. Theo said, please? Not Turtle. Siddell turned toward him with what should have been a gracious manner, but she grimaced when the top of the crutch poked her in the chest. The exact quotation, she announced loudly, hoping she was right, is spend it wisely, and may God thy gold refine. Right or wrong, her guess was received with groans of disapproval. The heirs had expected more, a hint, a clue, something. It was time to go home. Chapter 11. The Meeting. A pale sun rose on the third snowbound morning. Lake Michigan lay calm, violet, now blue, but the tenants of Sunset Towers on waking turned to a different view. Lured by the Westinghouse, they stood at their side windows, scoffing at the danger, daring to dream. Should they or shouldn't they share their clues? Well, they'd go to the meeting in the coffee shop just to see what the others intended to do. Waiting in her closet of her room, Turtle stared at the white-weighted branches of the maple on the hill. A twig snapped in silence. A flurry speckled the crusted snow. Sometimes when her mother was too busy to do her hair, she sent Angela in, but today no one came. They had forgotten about her. Brush and comb clutched in her fists like weapons, she stormed into apartment 2C. Do you know how to braid hair? Flora Baumbach's pudgy fingers, swift with the needle, were clumsy with the comb, but after several tangled attempts, she ended up with 3 equal strands. My, what thick hair you have! I tried braiding my daughter's hair once, but it was too fine, soft, and wispy like a baby's, even in her teens. That was the last thing Turtle wanted to hear. Was she pretty, your daughter? All mothers think their children are beautiful. Rosalie was an exceptional child, they said, but she was the lovingest person that ever was. My mother doesn't think I'm beautiful. Of course she does. My mother says I just looked like a turtle when I was a baby, sticking my head out of the blanket. I still look like a turtle, I guess, but I don't care. Where's your daughter now? Gone. Flora Baumbach cleared the catch in her throat. There, that braid should hold for the rest of the day. By the way, you've never told me your real name. Alice, Turtle replied, swinging her head before the mirror. Not one single hair escaped its tight bind. Mrs. Baumbach would make a good braider if only she'd stop yakking about her exceptional child. Rosalie, what a dumb name. You'd better get to the meeting now. Remember, don't say a word to anyone about anything. Just listen. All right, Alice, I promise. Theo wheeled his brother into the elevator and read the new message on the wall. $25 reward for the return of a gold railroad watch, transcribed, to Ezra Ford in appreciation of 30 years' service to the Milwaukee Road. J.J. Ford, apartment 4D. Ford, Chris said. That's right, Judge Ford. Must be her father's watch. Probably lost it. I don't think it could have been stolen by anyone at the party last night. Chris smiled. His brother had not understood him. Good. This might be an important discovery. Judge Ford's name was the same as her apartment number. Ford, 4D. Theo led the waiting tenants through the kitchen where Mr. and Mrs. Theodorakis handed out cups of tea and coffee. Sorry, we've run out of cream and lemons. Please help yourself to some homemade pastries. Walking into the coffee shop was like entering a cave. A wall of snow pressed against the plate glass window, scaling the door that once opened to the parking lot. I've got a car buried out there, Grace Wexler said, slipping into a booth opposite her partner. I hope I find it before the snowplows do. If they ever get here, Mr. Hu replied. Good thing this meeting wasn't held in my restaurant. I'd go broke passing out free tea, if you call this tea. He held up a tea bag with contempt, then groaned on seeing his sweat-suited son jog in with his sweet roll between his teeth and vault over his hands onto a stool. Where's your daughter, the turtle? Grace Wexler looked around. I don't know. Maybe she's helping her father with his bookkeeping. Bookkeeping? Mr. Hu let out a whoop. Grace had no idea what was so funny, but she joined him in loud laughter. Nothing stirred people's envy more than a private joke. Thinking she was being laughed at, Sidel Pulowski dropped her polka dot crutch and spilled her coffee on Angela's tapestry bag before managing a solid perch on the counter stool. Clink, clink. Theo tapped a spoon against a glass for attention. Thank you for coming. When the meeting is over, you are all welcome to stay for a chess tournament. Meanwhile, I'd like to explain why my partner and I, called this meeting. I don't know about your clues, but our clues don't make any sense. The heirs stared at him with blank faces. No one nodded. No one even blinked. Now then, if no two sets of clues are alike, as the will says, that could mean that each set of clues is only part of one message. The more clues we put together, the better chance we have of finding the murderer and winning the game. Of course, the inheritance will be divided into equal shares. Sidel Pulowski raised her hand like a schoolgirl. What about the clues that are in the will itself? Yes, we'd appreciate having a copy of the will, Miss Pulowski, Theo replied. Well, equal shares don't seem quite fair, since I'm the only one here who thought of taking notes. Sidel turned to the group, one penciled eyebrow arched high over her red sequined spectacles. Her self-congratulatory pose was too much for Mr. Hu. Grunting loudly, he squeezed out of the booth and slapped the shorthand pad on the counter. Thief! The secretary shrieked, nearly toppling off the stool as she grabbed her notebook. Thief! I did not steal your notebook, the indignant Hu explained. I found it on a table in my restaurant this morning. You can believe me or not, I don't really care, because those notes you selfishly dangled under our noses are completely worthless. My partner knows shorthand, and she says your shorthand is nothing but senseless scrawls. Gibberish. Pure gibberish, Grace Wexler added. Those are standard shorthand symbols, all right, but they don't translate into words. Thief! Sidel cried, now accusing Mrs. Wexler. Thief! Larcenist! Felon! Don't, Sidel, Angela said softly, her eyes set on the D's she was embroidering. You wouldn't understand, Angela. You don't know what it's like to be... Her voice broke. She paused, then lashed out at her enemies, all of them. Who cares a fig about Sidel Pulowski? Nobody, that's who. I'm no fool, you know. I knew I couldn't trust any one of you. You can't read my shorthand because I wrote it in Polish. Polish? When the meeting was again called to order, Mr. Hu suggested they offered Miss Pulowski a slightly larger share of the inheritance in exchange for his transcript of the will in English. However, I repeat, neither my partner nor I stole the notes, and if anyone here suspects us of murder, forget it. We both have airtight alibis. Doug choked on his sweet roll. If it got around to alibis, they'd find out where he was the night of the murder, on the Westinghouse lawn. Mr. Hu went on, and to prove our innocence, my partner and I agreed to share our clues. 1 minute, Mr. Hu, Judge Ford stood. It was time for her to speak before matters got out of hand. Let me remind you, all of you, that a person is not innocent until proven guilty. We are free to choose whether or not to share our clues without any implication of guilt. I suggest we postpone any decision until we have given the matter careful thought, and until the time all of the heirs can attend. However, since we are assembled, I have a question to ask the group. Perhaps others do too. They all did. Wary of giving away game plans, the heirs decided the questions would be written out, but no names were to be signed. Doug collected the scraps of paper and handed them to Theo. Is anyone here a twin? He read. No one answered. What is Turtle's real name? Doug, who was planning another nasty sign. Tabitha Ruth, replied Mrs. Wexler with a bewildered look at Flora Baumbach, who said Alice. Well, which is it? Tabitha Ruth Wexler. I should know. I'm her mother. Doug changed his mind about the sign. He couldn't spell Tabitha Ruth. Theo unfolded the next question. How many here have actually met Sam Westing? Grace Wexler raised her hand, lowered it, raised it halfway, then lowered again, torn between her claim as Sam Westing's relative and being accused of murder. Mr. Hu, an honest man, held up his hand and kept it up. He was the only one. Judge Ford did not think it necessary to respond to her own question. Theo recognized the sprawling handwriting of the next question. Who got kicked last week? Chris did not receive an answer. The meeting was adjourned due to panic. Chapter 12. The First Bomb. It was so sudden. The ear-splitting bangs, the screams, the confusion. Theo and Doug ran into the kitchen. Mrs. Theodorakis ran out. Her hair, her face, her apron were splattered with dark, dripping red. "Blood!" Sidel Pulaski cried, clutching her heart. "Don't just sit there," Catherine Theodorakis shouted. "Somebody call the fire department." Angela hurried to the payphone on the wall and stood there trembling, not knowing whether to call or not. They were snowbound. The fire engines could not reach Sunset Towers. Theo leaned through the kitchen doorway. "Everything's okay. There's no fire." "Chris, honey, it's all right," Mrs. Theodorakis said, kneeling before the wheelchair. "It's all right, Chris. Look, it's just tomato sauce." Tomato sauce? Mrs. Theodorakis was covered with tomato sauce, not blood. The curious heirs now piled into the kitchen, except for Sidel Pulaski, who slumped onto the counter. She could have a heart attack, and no one would notice. Mr. Hu surveyed the scene, trying to conceal his delight. "What a mess," he said. "That row of cans must have exploded from the heat of the stove." The entire kitchen was splattered with tomato sauce and soaked in foam from the fire extinguishers. What a mess. George Theodorakis regarded him with suspicion. It was a bomb. Catherine Theodorakis thought so too. There was hissing, then bang bang, sparks flying all over the kitchen, red sparks, purple sparks. "Cans of tomato sauce exploded," Doug Hu said, defending his father. The others agreed. Mrs. Theodorakis was understandably hysterical. A bomb? Ridiculous. Sam Westing certainly did not appear to have been killed by a bomb. Judge Ford suggested that the accident be reported to the police immediately in order to collect on the insurance. "You might as well redecorate the entire kitchen," Grace Wexler, decorator, proposed. "It should be functional yet attractive, with lots of copper pots hanging from the ceiling." "I don't think there's any real damage," Catherine Theodorakis replied, "but we'll have to close for a few days to clean up." Mr. Hu smiled. Angela offered to help. "Angela, dear, you have a fitting this afternoon," Grace reminded her, "and we have so much to do for the wedding shower on Saturday." In thumped Sidel Pulaski. "I'm fine now, just a bit woozy. Goodness, what a nasty turn." Having recovered from the nasty turn, Sidel Pulaski settled down to transcribing her shorthand to Polish, then from Polish to English. Startled by a loud banging on her apartment door, she struck the wrong typewriter key. "Open up!" Recognizing the voice, Angela unbolted the door to a furious Turtle. "All right, Angela, where is it?" "What?" "The newspaper you stole from my desk." Angela carefully dug through the embroidery, personal items, and other paraphernalia in her tapestry bag, and pulled out the newspaper folded to the Westing obituary. "I'm sorry, Turtle. I would have asked for it, but you weren't around." "You don't also happen to have my Mickey Mouse clock in there, do you?" Turtle softened on seeing her sister's hurt expression. "I'm only kidding. You left your engagement ring on the sink again. Better go get it before somebody steals that, too." "Oh, I wouldn't worry about anyone stealing Angela's ring," Sidel Pulaski remarked. "No mother would stoop that low." The thought of Grace being the burglar was so funny to Turtle, she plopped down on the sofa and rolled about in laughter. It felt good to laugh. The stock market had fallen 5 points today. "Angela, please tell your sister to get her dirty shoes off my couch. Tell her to sit up and act like a lady." Turtle rose with a tongue click very much like her mother's, but she was not about to leave without striking back. Arms folded, she leaned against the wall and let them have it. "Mom thinks Angela was the one who stole the shorthand notebook." That got them. Look at those open mouths. "Because Mom asked to see it, and Angela does everything she says." "Anyone could have stolen my notebook. I didn't double lock my door that day." If Sidel couldn't trust her own partner, she was alone, all alone. "Did Mom really say that?" Angela asked. "No, but I know how she thinks. I know what everybody thinks. Grown-ups are so obvious." "Ridiculous," scoffed Sidel. "For instance, I know that Angela doesn't want to marry that sappy intern." "Ridiculous. You're just jealous of your sister." "Maybe," Turtle had to admit, "but I am what I am. I don't need a crutch to get attention." Oh, she had gone too far. "Turtle didn't mean it that way, Sidel," Angela said quickly. "She used the word crutch as a symbol. She meant, you know, that people are so afraid of revealing their true selves they have to hide behind some sort of prop." "Oh, really?" Sidel replied. "Then Turtle's crutch is her big mouth." No, Angela thought, hurrying her sister out the door and back to their apartment. Turtle's crutch is her braid. The newspaperman called again to say he had found some photographs taken at Westington parties 20 years ago. One of those names appears in a caption as Violet Westing's escort, George Theodorakis. Go on, the judge said. That's all. He promised to send her the clippings in the Westing file as soon as he was shoveled out. The judge now knew of 4 heirs with Westing connections: James Hu, the inventor; Theo's father, her partner; Sandy McSuthers, who had been fired from the Westing paper mill; and herself. But she had to learn more, much more, about each one of the heirs if she hoped to protect the victim of Sam Westing's revenge. She would have to hire a detective, a very private detective, who had not been associated with her in her practice or in the courts. J.J. Ford flipped through the yellow pages to investigators, private. Good grief! Her finger stopped near the top of the list. Was it a coincidence or dumb luck? Or was she playing right into Sam Westing's hand? No choice but to chance it. The judge dialed the number and tapped her foot impatiently, waiting for an answer. Hello, if you're looking for a snowbound private investigator, you've got the right number. Yes, she had the right number. It might be a trick, but it was no coincidence. The voices were one and the same. That's the end of Chapter 12. We will continue with Chapter 13 in the next video.